Hi everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my garden. I hope you all are having a fantastic day today. It is incredibly windy today. We are in fall, and actually I was just filming and my umbrella fell over, my trusty umbrella that I always use for shade. Luckily I don't think it broke, but if it falls over again, I'll have to start all this all over again. Anyway, today I wanted to talk to you guys about fall planting bulbs. I got the best type of mail. I got plant mail the other day, and I wanted to share with you all what I purchased from Eden Brothers. Now, Eden Brothers, I normally think of Eden Brothers as a seed supplier. I've bought seeds from them many times. I've always really enjoyed the seed selection that they have. Their shipping's good, all that kind of stuff. But I've never actually bought bulbs from them. And this year I decided to try out Eden Brothers to see how their bulbs were, specifically fall planting bulbs. So all these bulbs in this big box right here, these are for my own personal cut flower garden that I have on my house property. So if you guys watch my videos, I'm sure you know I do have what I'm calling my flower field, and that is a borrowed piece of property that I am borrowing from a neighbor's family that lives pretty close by, and they are letting me use their property to expand my cut flower garden, which I am so excited about. It's just about time for me to start planting things out for my fall plantings, and I do have a bunch of fall planted bulbs that I'm planning to plant out there, but those are actually I purchased from Costco. I always have the best luck with Costco bulbs. I think they're all from Longfield Gardens, but I already have them pre-chilling in my fridge, and they are ready to go as soon as it's time to plant those out. So all of these from this order, these are all going in my own personal cut flower garden in my front yard. That garden is about 20 feet long by 10 feet wide, so 200 square feet. It's not too big. I've had it, this will be my third year planting it as a cut flower garden. It used to be just this forgotten piece of property, of garden in my yard that I really didn't think too much of. I didn't pay any attention to. It had a couple old lavender bushes, nothing special. And so I decided to take it all out and use that piece of property as a cut flower garden, and I've loved it every minute since. I have gotten so much use out of that spot on my property. It was totally worth it to take that out and use it as a cut flower garden. So I have a bunch of seedlings that I've sown, and they are growing. I am hardening them off right now, getting ready to plant them out in the next week or two. I'm doing that for my cut flower garden and then also for my flower field. But these fall planted bulbs, which include ranunculus, anemones, tulips, and daffodils, these are all going to go in my cut flower garden as well for late winter, spring blooms, and I'm so excited about them. One thing I really liked about Eden Brothers is that they had a lot of mixes to choose from. I find myself leaning very heavily on bulb mixes because of my lack of space that I have. I just don't have one whole row to dedicate to one type of tulip or one type of daffodil. I want to try as many flowers as possible so that I can see which ones I actually like and which ones I want to grow again the next year. So I find myself leaning very heavily on mixes so that I can get the biggest bang for my buck. Eden Brothers had a lot to choose from, and I think almost every variety or mix in here is a mix of them, just so that I can choose or have the ability to enjoy a lot of different varieties of these bulbs. So we are in the last week of October. I wanted to film this video to show you all before I started kind of processing all these bulbs. Because I live in zone 9B, I do have to pre-chill my tulip bulbs. I can't just plant my tulip bulbs right out into the ground because we don't get cold enough over the winter time. I will link my pre-chilling tulip bulbs in my zone and in mild climates video down below. It's really helpful if you live in zone 8 and above, because you do have to pre-chill your tulip bulbs as well to get them to bloom. I also am going to be fall planting my ranunculus and my anemones. And I have so much trouble pronouncing anemones that I'm gonna pause every time before I say it, just just to make sure I say it right, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it anyway. So if you live in zones 8 through 12, you're going to want to fall plant your ranunculus and your anemone bulbs or corms. If you live in zones below that, you actually want to plant them in the spring or if you have some type of row cover or something like that to protect them from frost and freeze, then you can plant them in the fall. Now in my zone 9B, you do not have to pre-sprout your ranunculus and your anemones. My friend Olivia is planting them, actually I think today, she's planting them straight out into the ground and not worrying about pre-sprouting them. I actually like pre-sprouting my ranunculus and my anemones because then I can check and make sure that they're viable. I actually dug up a whole bunch of my anemones and ranunculus from my cut flower garden last year, and just to make sure that they're okay, that they're going to sprout and they're going to bloom for me, I'm going to pre-sprout them as well. And I'm planning to pre-sprout my ranunculus and my anemones on Halloween weekend, so next weekend. And then 2 weeks after that, I will plant them out into my cut flower garden. Again, I'm in zone 9B. My first frost is December 4th. So you guys, if you guys are in a different planting area, different planting zone than I am, you're going to have to adjust your planting dates. Now, as for daffodils, we have daffodils growing on the sides of the freeways here. So it's really, really easy to plant daffodils here. You don't have to pre-chill them. You don't have to even worry about them at all. I will just probably plant them a little bit later in the season just for time's sake, probably around the same time that I'm planting my tulips. All right, so let me show you what I purchased from Eden Brothers. I will put pictures up on the screen so you guys can see what the flower mixes look like and what I'm expecting the blooms to be like in the spring. So as you can see, this box is pretty full. It's very exciting. The first thing I have are my ranunculus, and for Eden Brothers, ranunculus come in these little boxes like that, which I thought was pretty cool. So here's what a ranunculus corm looks like. To me, it looks like a little dried up octopus. That's kind of how I think about it. And what you're gonna do is you're actually gonna soak these before you pre-sprout them, or actually just plant them directly out into the garden. They say if you pre-sprout them, you can get them to bloom 4 weeks sooner than if you don't pre-sprout them. So again, if you live in a high zone like I do, you don't have to pre-sprout them, but I have a feeling, you know, I want them as early as humanly possible. And I pre-sprouted my ranunculus corms last year, and I got my ranunculus blooms so early. They were one of the first things to bloom, and it brought me so much joy to have color at that time of year. So from Eden Brothers, I purchased 2 different varieties or 2 different kinds of ranunculus, and I purchased 2 boxes each, and each box contains 20 corms. So I got 40 corms of each kind. The first kind I got was the Chamalo, and I don't know if it's a Chamalo variety or Chamalo mix. I'm pretty sure it's a Chamalo variety, but Eden Brothers describes it as unique 2-toned petals in heavenly shades of pink. And you all know I am a sucker for pink blooms, and so I of course had to get the heavenly shades of pink. Eden Brothers says they do well in both cool and warm climates, and they will bloom from spring all the way to summertime, especially if you plant them in a full sun location, which I am. The other variety of ranunculus that I purchased was the romantic mix. And again, I purchased 40 corms, and the romantic mix they describe as soft hues of coral, pink, and salmon. So I just kind of think of this as a little bit more warmer, a little bit more orangey tones than the Chamalo, and I thought it would be really, really gorgeous in spring bouquets. So both types of anemones that I purchased from Eden Brothers are the Decane mix. And the Decane mix kind of looks like those poppy type flowers, the poppy anemones. They're absolutely gorgeous, and they're so popular right now. I feel like everybody wants anemones in their bouquets, and whenever I made any of my neighbors or my friends' bouquets, they would always ask me about the anemones. They're absolutely beautiful. And just like ranunculus, they bloomed almost the earliest flower last year. So I'm really excited to have these so that I can have color as early in the season as possible. So I got 2 types. The first one is called the romantic mix. The anemone bulbs, they come in these little bags when you order them from Eden Brothers, and I think that that's absolutely fine. They don't need boxes like the ranunculus do. The ranunculus with the little tentacles on the octopus, you want to be careful that those don't break off. These are like acorns, right? They're like little nuts, so you don't have to worry about anything. I have the hardest time remembering which way to plant my anemone corms or my anemone bulbs. I think last year I planted almost every single one upside down, but they all still bloomed so it's really not that big of a deal. I'll put right here whether to put the pointy side up or down, because honestly, right now, I don't even remember. I cannot, it's like a black hole in my brain of which way to plant the anemone corms. So Eden Brothers describes their rainbow pastel mix as a palette of rose, plum, and lavender fit for any watercolor artist, which I am not a watercolor artist, but I would love to be, so maybe I can try this year. They say they can last over a week in the vase, which is absolutely fantastic. And again, just like the ranunculus, zones 2 through 7 you want to plant in the spring, and zones 8 through 12 you can plant in the fall. So I obviously will be planting these in the fall, and again, I will be pre-sprouting these just to make sure they're viable and maybe to get them a couple weeks early. The other variety that I purchased are the quintessential decaying anemones, which are the whites, and they're the cream colored petals surrounding a black eye. And I think that these are the most popular wedding flower that there is right now. If you look on Pinterest and you look on blooms, you know, you look at bouquets or anything like that, or flower arrangements, I feel like there's always a white anemone with a black eye. So I, of course, wanted to have some of my own so I could make some of those same beautiful flower arrangements. All right, now onto the tulips. So they come in bags just like this. Each one of them comes with 10 tulip bulbs per bag. And again, I am in zone 9B, so I have to pre-chill my tulips. So as soon as I finish filming this, all of the bags of tulips are going straight into my garage fridge, where they can get the cold that they need so that they can bloom properly in the spring. The variety that I got all the same variety of tulips, but I did get a mix, and it's called a double pink mix, and I got 100 bulbs of this. So that should, I can't remember if it's 1 row or 2 rows in my 10-foot wide cut flower garden, but it should be absolutely gorgeous. Eden Brothers describes the double pink mix as a romantic mix of violet, blush, and cream colored double blooms. So I don't think I grew any double bloom tulips last year. I think I just had the single bloom tulips. Last year was the very first year that I grew tulips. Tulips are not very common in higher zones because you have to put the effort in to pre-chilling them. Yes, you can just purchase pre-chilled bulbs, but I like to save a little bit of money and just pre-chill them myself because I have a garage fridge and I can easily just throw them in there. So last year I ordered my bulbs. As soon as I got them, I threw them in my garage fridge, and then around Christmas time I planted them out, and they bloomed absolutely beautifully. I had so many people stopping by asking me how I got tulips to bloom in our area. And I told them all the same thing. There's no secret to it. You just have to know that if you live in a mild climate, our temperature does not get cold enough over the winter for the tulips to grow properly. So you have to pre-chill them, or you have to purchase pre-chilled bulbs. So the tulip double pink mix from Eden Brothers, they say they bloom mid-spring to late spring. So I think that that will be absolutely gorgeous. You know, the ranunculus and the anemones will already be blooming, and then the tulips will come up behind them, and I'll be able to enjoy color all spring long. All right, so the last type of bulb that I purchased from Eden Brothers for my cut flower garden next spring are daffodils. And like I said, daffodils here are like the bread and butter of spring blooming bulbs. I always think when I see daffodils starting to bloom on the side of the freeway, I think, that's it, winter's over, it's springtime. And it's kind of like the sigh of relief. You see those little yellow flowers on the side of the road, and it's just, I just love it. And I think that that's why daffodils are my favorite flower. So from Eden Brothers, the mix that I chose, yes, I chose a mix of daffodils. It's called the Citrus Sorbet Mix, which I was totally drawn to when I saw it on the website. They say that it is a mix of lemon, tangerine, and grapefruit colored blooms in every imaginable texture and shape. How cool. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I will link all of these varieties down below. Unfortunately, I do have to say, I just checked right before filming this, a lot of these are already sold out. So I have found that with spring blooming bulbs, fall planted spring blooming bulbs, you have to buy them in summer. And that's crazy to be thinking about next year in summer, but if you want to get the specific varieties, you really do have to buy them at that time. Otherwise, you kind of just have to grab what's available, or I actually find a lot of bulbs, like I said, at Costco or Home Depot or Lowe's, and those I can always find a little bit later in the season if I've missed out on pre-ordering ordering the fall planted bulbs. So thank you all for watching this, and I hope you all have a chance to get into your garden today. Umbrella's down. I'm also going to be fall planting my ranunculus and my anemones. And I also got 2 different varieties of anemones.